So now what we're going to talk about is what's a notaire. We've mentioned this a few times, and a notaire is a public official, and they do all the administrative work for a real estate sale. They do some other stuff like when somebody dies, they take care of the estate, and they deal with that. But they're very particular. I don't believe they exist in America. And I think that it's good to know that they are public officials. This is the logo, in fact. If you want to know they're a notaire, their association is very difficult to become a notaire. It takes about, I think they have to go through about 10 years or something. It's a long time. And you'll often hear when you do sales, you'll hear us about, you'll see a price, and it'll say the agency fees are included. And then, but what they won't say is it'll say plus notaire's fees. And the notaire fees, which actually don't go all to the notaire, they collect, it's basically taxes that they collect to the state. And it goes from, well, some people say 2. I put down 2.5 just to make it safe, 2.5 to 7.5% of the sale of the price. And this is on top of the agency fees. It's on top of the, very important to know, it's on top of the agency fees. And my property, because it was new, was 2.5, basically what I paid. And if a property is less than 2 years old, it's on the lower rate, the 2.5 rate, and after that, the base rate is 7%. But the higher the price of the home, the lower the rate's going to be, the lower the interest rate's going to be, the notaire's fees are going to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just what I would say is, and they need to check that when they are buying, because it does change. They have, France has come out with various programs, buying programs on for this or for that, and the notary fees vary on that. And like you say, whether it's a brand new building or whether it's an old building or whatever. But the fees go up almost every year, and they do vary on the amount. So, and the realtor that you work with will be able to tell you right up front what the notary fees are going to be. Yeah.
Right, and it's good to know that a notaire is independent. They do not work for the buyer nor the seller. And I've seen notaires inform a buyer like 2 or 3 days before a sale is going to close that there's some sort of a discrepancy on the deed, the house. There's some sort of a discrepancy, for example, on the square meterage or the square footage. And I know of one deal, it just because the notaire said there's an issue here, they told the buyer, and the buyer was able to pull out. And so I think it's just good to know that the notaire is independent. Contracts, basically what all notaires do is they do contracts like marriage contracts. They are a monopoly. They're a monopoly. The state gives them a monopoly. You can't just become a notaire. It takes a long process. You have to buy into it. They're called an étude, and you have to buy into an étude, and you have to have a long process. And there's a website here, notaires.fr. I was a bit disappointed. There is a part of it that is in English, but I was a bit disappointed. I did not think it was was all that great. But it's kind of also cultural. Sometimes it can be difficult to get a straight answer because everything it depends on the person. If you wanted to know, well, how much would my taxes be, or if I died, how would that work? You would have to tell them your specific. You'd have to go see a notaire and tell them your specific situation, and they would help you. I did see a notaire once, and Jeanette did too, and they just kind of gave us some advice for free. They sometimes will do that. I was very nice. We talked to a woman about a half hour, and she said we didn't have to do something, so I thought they were pretty nice. Okay, so.
Yeah, no, well, just one last thing. Yeah, the notaries can be very, very helpful, and, well, it's a notary, and, you have to go through them when you buy something. Now, if you have some real questions, as we said, Jeff, you can always, contact a lawyer that has worked in both countries if you have questions about taxes and all of that.
Yeah, and it's good, what Jeanette just said, is that a sale of a house in France goes through a notaire. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. It's another way, etc. It goes through a notaire. At some point, it goes through a notaire. You can buy a company. You can buy into a company that maybe buys the property. That's a lot with Americans, a fractional ownership. But the sale, if you personally buy, it goes through a notaire. So that's what you need. That's very, very important to know.